Hey Thomas, how you doing?
Hey, David, how are you? Happy
Doing good.
day after Thanksgiving.
It is. Did you have a good Thanksgiving?
It was good. Never
Is it
long
cold?
enough.
Is it cold there?
It's chilly.
What is chilly
Yeah,
where you live?
here we go. Uh,
Because that is a relative term.
yeah, it was probably 60 some degrees, but cloudy and a little rainy. So to me, it was chilly. Once you get that chill, it's kind of hard to break it. So I
Yeah.
have to jump in the shower and do all that stuff. And
Wait, where are you from? I think you told me.
I'm originally from Philadelphia, outside Philadelphia,
Okay,
Pennsylvania.
but you're from outside Philadelphia and you think that North Carolina cold is
I
particularly
guess the
difficult for
blood
you?
thins out with all the sweet tea or and the biscuits, right? So it
In the
just thins out
biscuits,
your
yeah.
blood. Biscuits
Um,
and gravy.
no, I always laugh about it. Like it's gonna get to 35 degrees, and then tonight and then tomorrow night where I live in Northwest Florida, it's gonna ebb to 32 degrees for about 20 minutes. And so they
Once it's
issue a
back,
hard freeze warning.
yeah,
A hard freeze warning. Like I lived here for 8 years with only like 15 minutes worth of freezing temperatures. And then one year we had like oh crap, it was 5 solid days with temperatures under 32. And
utter
you want to
chaos.
talk about mayhem, because see, they don't have any, like the hose bibs, they're not wrapped.
No,
I mean, none of that. Um, and back then I had an aquaponic garden attached to a greenhouse, and the
different.
aquaponic garden was not really well suited for for that. So what I did was I rerouted the water, and I ran it through a big like crawfish pot. I
You
and
were
I
heating the
turned,
water.
I turned the banner the yeah I turned the heater on the flame on the water, and we kept that water at a nice 56 degrees, and
Nice.
everything was okay.
Yeah,
I did that for 5 solid days. It was and we saved the fish.
yeah, perfect. Although at 56 degrees, they were not happy.
They weren't happy, but they still would eat and poop and do all the things they need to do to feed the plants.
Nice,
So
nice.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't know what's happened to me over the years as I get more mature.
that's what they call it,
The
mature.
Well, that's what I'm going with. Say
I think
old or more mature now. I like more mature. It sounds better.
we boys, we get regal. We don't get old.
There you go. That's a whole nother conversation we could have about that. But yeah, I've just, and after my medical issues that I had a couple of years ago, the blood is just not as thick as it used to be. So I'm blaming it on everything else but me being a wussy.
Do you know what annoys me more than anything about winter is okay, if my family had their druthers, they would exist in 71 degrees year round. Like
San
that's
Diego.
the perfect temperature. But if it gets cold outside, they suddenly want it to be 75. And so all summer long, all winter long, I'm miserably hot because they want to dry my air out and have it hot. And it's like, what's wrong with you people? Just keep it the same temperature. Like you should never even have to touch it. But
Yeah,
but yeah.
that's an interesting conversation. We'll
So
avoid
what's
that today.
so what's the craziest claim thing you've had happen in the last week or so?
Craziest is, I'm dealing with some engineers now.
Oh
And
yeah.
I've one particular house that has had 5 trees on it. DBH trees were, probably 40 to 50 inches around. And, the butt joints are all broken. The walls are leaning out. There's every truss is broken with the exception of 2. And,
And they
I know
needed
where they're going to go with this one. And
did they send an engineer or did you get an engineer?
they sent an engineer.
Oh, there are some things where engineers don't even have to speak.
Well, he did, and I know where he's going with this one. And he's, I vetted him a little bit and seems to know what he's doing. He's a carrier. He's from Rimkus. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that or not, but whatever, and What really irritated me, to be honest with you, was he called the insured to set the appointment, knowing good well that I was the PA on it. And I get it, right? So that happens, miscommunication inside the carrier, things like that. I just let him know that going forward, that everything needed to be coordinated through me. And I did it in a nice professional manner. And we had fun when we did the inspection. But I mean, there's still a tree, or, probably this round branch in the middle of the house, because they didn't have a crane when they removed it. And, I'm just like, this isn't rocket science. Like, this is, of course, the building's been condemned by the county, which doesn't mean a whole lot to the carriers, but it does to me. And it's really not safe.
But why does it not mean anything when the county says that?
It should, and it does, but not to the carrier.
I have been impeded from rebuilding my home. Impeded. They will not issue a permit for that. They want it in a dumpster.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
It is an unsafe structure. The moment it becomes an unsafe structure, to be honest with you, the county gets to say whatever they say, and you get to give that to the carrier, and they should be like, oh, okay. I mean, I don't know. There are very few things that trigger me more in the whole industry than that thing they do where they go, well, we're not going to pay for it unless they.
Yeah. We've talked about this.
Yeah.
And I have another case with the old poly pipe here in North Carolina. The licensed plumber, it's not on his approved water distribution list. So he went and changed it out. 95% of the house, they use the demo code for each room, which is a catastrophic loss, right? Remove everything, finished, rough-ins, everything. And they're like, we're not paying for that pipe. Well, because who gave you approval for that? Well, the plumber who's licensed, it says on his list, this is not approved piping for water distribution. So we're supposed to sit there and wait for your adjuster to come out and say, well, yes, that's poly and all that stuff. And no, he can't put it in there. He can't pass inspection with that pipe in there, period. End of story. And I know you've talked about it. Other people have talked about it. It's just a fight, and they have dug their heels in. So I'm like, okay, cool. I can only get it so far. And now, Mr. and Mrs. Insured, here's your options. Do what you got to do.
I don't know, man. Like, I just think that, well, let me tell you about something crazy I had, like nothing I've ever seen. So I have this appraisal. I'm doing the appraisal. I'm going to, we finished the appraisal. We signed the award. I sent it to the carrier. My opposing sent it to the carrier. The carrier went silent. And 14 days after the award was issued, the carrier sent a note that said they were firing their appraiser and assigning a new appraiser, which the insured wrote back. I wrote back. And then my letter that went to him was kind of like, yeah, I've been here like 30 years and this has never happened. Like, not once. Like, this is weird. And I don't think you can, and I said, I don't think you can unilaterally just say, we're going to start over. It's like, I call it a unilateral reboot.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So the freaking CEO of the insurance company writes me a letter to tell me that this is our new appraiser and you're absolutely wrong and we can do anything we want. And this appraiser is going to contact the insured to schedule a time to inspect the property. So I tell him, I'm like, so let me get this straight. This person is my opposing appraiser. Let's just say that you can do what you're doing. Okay. This is my opposing appraiser, but he's just going to call the insured. He's not going to call me. We're not going to deal with umpires, nothing like that. And he doesn't respond. But this is where this was the weird part. So he calls the insured and says he's going to be there on Wednesday at like 11 a.m. and just leaves a message. At 11 a.m., the adjuster for the claim arrives with the appraiser and walk the loss together.
Nice.
I mean, like, you'd almost have to try to be that off the reservation. And like, what kills me more than anything is like the lawyer's like, David, that's the CEO of the company that wrote you? I'm like, yeah. They go, he couldn't have got somebody else to do that, so he had some way to be like, oh, I don't know anything about that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, exactly.
And it's interesting. In this particular location, appraisal is not governed by the Department of Insurance. In most places, it's not, because the idea is to take it outside of that realm. But evidently, they know that, and so to keep this from going to the Department of Insurance, I think they've tried to put it back in appraisal to keep it out of their purview. It's just a guess, but we'll see. I get to deal with that this week. It's going to be exciting.
Nice. Is it cold there?
It is fairly chilly there. In Kansas, it's not that it's that cold in Kansas. It's that they have wind.
Lots of it. Strong wind.
And you know, that wind is like when I'm there sometimes, I'm like, when I go to open the door on the truck, I'm like, oh, you know. And I was talking to some guy in a restaurant up there. He's a doctor. And he said one of the most common injuries he has to treat is people like getting into their cars and having the car door slam on them.
Oh, wow.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, so, I mean, we kind of got today off, but you got a big week next week?
Yes. We're in the middle of this thing now here in Western North Carolina. I'm actually home yesterday and today. I'll go back tomorrow. Actually, I came back Wednesday, but that's okay. And just, we're getting into the throes of this thing where there's some insureds that still haven't gotten anything from their carrier. And, everyone's trying to move everything forward quickly, a little too quickly for my liking. However, I get it. Everything's changing. The weather's changing. The attitudes are getting worse in Western North Carolina in terms of, it's getting cold. Human services coming, taking kids and, because they don't have adequate housing. And, it's really getting testy, I guess, is really the best way of saying it. And it's not going to get better anytime soon.
And like even in normal circumstances, Thomas, even in normal, you'd have people going, my God, my insurance company said they were going to do this, but they didn't. And so they'll be ringing your phone. I didn't know that, but if you add all this other stuff about all these people that are uninsured, yeah.
And, with the conspiracy theories flying around there with, the big lithium guys trying to come in and, buy the land up. And, if someone's missing, they're not paying their mortgage payment. So they're going to go in and start foreclosing. And, then what happens? But if they're declared dead, then there's some legal maneuvers that heirs can do to, reposition a home and try to negotiate things like that. So it's interesting. And people are just starting to figure this stuff out, right? So it's scary for them. They're scared. They don't know what to do. There's so much misinformation out there about FEMA not doing this, FEMA doing this. I'm not here to say that they're doing right or wrong. I don't know all the answers to it or actually what's happening. So, and, with this cold weather, it's really just added a whole different, and, the holidays, right? The holidays always touches our hearts. And we're seeing a lot of that happening as well.
Well, I always feel a little bit bad for FEMA in that they have a set of tools. Okay. They are Federal Emergency Management. Okay. Emergency management handles their first directive is life safety. Their second directive is life safety. Their third directive is life safety. And their fourth directive is life safety. But we look at them as if they are a social program that should take us from broken to restored. And they don't have a good modality to do that. Okay. And I don't think that the Department of Homeland Security is ever going to be able to do that. Okay. To that level. And it sucks. But Thomas, why can't we have in communities, okay? Why couldn't the communities of Western North Carolina just say to their people, hey, you've got to get national flood coverage and you have to pay into this co-op to live here so we can help pay for whatever
comes our way.
FEMA doesn't pay for.
Yeah.
We make all kind of conditions for people living places. I have to pay taxes. I have to allow a certain part of my property to be commandeered by the city for whatever they want to put under the ground. I can't build a 7-story structure on my property. There's all kinds of things I have to do. And
yeah, but wouldn't that be Big Brother coming in and telling us how to live our lives? That's how it would be perceived by a lot of folks.
Exactly. But if we're going to live in this wild and woolly world, we're going to have to find a way to insure it. And you're going to have a baseline of insurance. Because like you look at places like Baton Rouge, Louisiana, they had their 1,000-year flood. There's nobody alive there that remembers when most of these places were flooded. They were almost all in flood zone X, and people didn't have coverage. And and then we see in Western North Carolina, and we see out there 75% of the people didn't have coverage. And people say, oh, well, they live close to a body of water, a moving body of water. Well, yeah, but they usually don't, like in hundreds of years, it's never been a problem. So it's got to be cheap enough for us to insure ourselves for the outlier. Like I had this guy once that he had a river reroute through his house. It wasn't a big river, but it doesn't take a whole lot.
Mm-mm.
It went right through the center of his house. And they say that water, what is the universal solvent? And it did, man. It just,
Oh yeah.
I mean, it wasn't long before like it just broke up all the concrete. It was amazing. But this guy's family had lived in this particular property for 96 years. He was in Virginia, and he had this happen.
Yeah. It's terrible. It's interesting though, with flood, it's such a different animal, right? In terms of FEMA, NFIP. Well, first of all, the NFIP set these rates, residential at 250, commercial at 500,000. I could be wrong about this, back in 1974. With law and ordinance upgrades of $30,000 for residential, just to raise your house or to provide some mitigation type events in there.
ICC compliance.
Yeah. So $30,000 to raise your home, that's not going to cover a quarter of it. So that's one issue we have, right? We have to update those policies. And what they cover, to be perfectly honest with you, is not enough.
Well, the problem with flood is that at the end of the day, if you have a wind claim, you have the perfect right to be made whole. With flood, you're going to lose. I mean, like, you're going to have a lot of extra money to spend no matter what you do. I did see one situation here recently where that wasn't the case. The water came up in this particular house 9.5 feet. And so we're like, house dumpster. Yeah.
Yeah. There's,
but,
and the NFIP is federal, right? So these, if you're out of line that much, they're going to throw it out.
Right.
And if you don't have your paperwork filed on the day or before the day, no excuses, you're getting thrown out.
Right.
So it's just a different animal, right? There's no leeway. I get that, right? I understand that, respect that. But and this is one of the things we're trying to do now here in Western North Carolina is have some webinars and some, town hall meetings with folks on the residential side as well as commercial to educate folks on what their requirements and responsibilities are after the flood. We're 60 days into it. I think it's January or February, early in January, February, where the files have to be, proof of loss have to be filed, things like that. There's a lot of commercial guys, and it was interesting to me, a lot of, in these smaller towns, the commercial building and business owners were not worried about their own buildings in the beginning. They were concentrated in their communities, helping communities out because they didn't want people to think that, we're this big bad corporation and we've got all our stuff done and all that stuff. So the commercial guys are now, dealing with their own stuff and they've had some work done and they're moving forward on stuff, but they're kind of behind the 8 ball, David. And we're coming into, there's another 57 days and we can't operate on the assumption that they're going to move that proof of loss date again. Now they're struggling and they just don't know what to do because especially Western North Carolina and Asheville, they haven't had this experience before. So the level of expertise in the area is limited. So we're going to bring some folks in to, try to educate some folks and help them out and really show them and show them, what needs to be done. It's not from a business perspective. It's really from helping the community out.
How's how is the pricing looking there for the labor in the market?
Well, I can tell you in Asheville and all over Western North Carolina, drywall guy coming in, it's $250 a board, period. No exceptions. $250 a board. I think Xactimate's at like $96 a board, somewhere in that range. Carriers seem to be okay with that. They get that there. Supplies are starting to be limited, shingles, things like that. And two, one thing that, and I think you talked about it earlier, I saw someone talking about it, the coming tariffs that are going to happen, or may not happen, are only going to increase the cost of everything. So here we are writing estimates, today's numbers, and in 2 months, they could be drastically different.
Yeah, I'm super worried about that because we have so many things that are right in the middle of the claims process. And I'll tell you where I recall this the most is some stuff we did early on in Katrina, where basically the scope, the insurance claim was basically settled. And I'm talking about the people that didn't have catastrophic losses, but they would get settled. And then we would suddenly find that, drywall itself was 3 times what it was normally. And the labor to do the drywall was through the roof. The shingles weren't available, and the cost to do shingles went through the roof. But basically you'd have the average. I remember having this conversation with somebody that was an insurance carrier that basically they were in a situation where nothing was going to look the same in 3 months. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
By the way, that what happened during what happened during Katrina that nobody talks about was 2 things. This sheetrock became drywall, and because in the South it was always sheetrock. You say it real fast, sheetrock. But and then the second thing that happened was the Hispanic labor force up until that time had been paid substandard wages, and at Katrina, because you didn't have enough labor, they got parity in their wages with everyone else. And so what happened was from that point forward, we didn't have that same mentality anymore because it didn't matter who was standing on the roof or who was doing the drywall or who was doing the concrete. They were all making the same wage. And I just thought that was, I just think it's interesting that we could have these, we have these big perils that change
everything,
that change things in huge ways.
Yeah.
I also worry about the fact that, we just got to face it. All these places that were affected so bad in North Carolina, especially, they're going to have, there are times in life that mark time. We all have that, what was before and what was after. And this is going to mark time for them. And it's going to be the new Asheville and the new whatever and the new whatever. It's not going to be what was there before. It's not going to feel the same. And that probably won't matter in 60 years, but it'll matter for the next 60. It'll matter to all the people that are there now.
Yeah. Well, think about this. You're exactly right. The whole canopy system of the tree system has just changed dramatically. I have one customer where he couldn't see his neighbor prior to the storm. Now there was a tornado that came between the houses, knocked down every tree in there with the exception of maybe 4. Now he can see in plain daylight, his neighbor's house, 70-some-year-old guy. And it's really disturbing to him. Talking about the migrant workers, I think it was the state of Texas, some of the general contractors down there were complaining that, hey, we're under tremendous growth down here with building. And if you take away our labor force, we're done. And how are we going to get these buildings up that, it's building up Austin and Texas and Austin and Dallas and Dallas-Fort Worth and all these other areas.
Look what happened in Florida 2 years ago. In Florida, they made a law that said if you lived with, drove with, worked with, sat with, whatever, if you consorted in any way, shape, or form with somebody who was undocumented, you could go to jail for 5 years. So if, you've got legal workers who may have a grandmother or grandfather that lives with them that overstayed a visa. Okay. And suddenly these legal workers are like, we have to go now because we can't risk this for us or for grandma.
Yeah.
So they packed up and left. And we lost not just undocumented folks. We lost huge amounts of documented folks. and it drove everything about construction higher. And I mean, it's part of the reason we had higher inflation in Florida than we did in other places, because, like, I mean, they have to bring people at the restaurants where I live in from like the Eastern Bloc to work during the heavy season, because there's nobody to do the work, and
That's right.
pays really good,
Yeah.
but there's nobody to do the work because we're beyond full employment. I know nobody wants to talk about that, but at full employment, that means that those undocumented, they're part of the machine. I'm not talking about whether they should be here or not. That's not my point. My
That's
point
right.
is the practical matter is they are part of the machine that supports what we do, and that does scare me. And I mean, it also scares me. I mean, we haven't really thought about it all the way through. And I hear everybody saying, well, "Oh, it's just a tactic." Okay, it's a tactic for what? What do you want out of Canada? I mean, they're our largest trading partner. Okay, I mean, like, but I mean, we get most of our wood from there.
Yes.
We get oil from there. We get a lot of metal from there. We get a tremendous amount of stuff that we use in construction from there. And I just think it's going to get super interesting. You talked about the canopy changing after Hurricane Michael in Panama City. I told my wife one day, I said, there's no shade here anymore. Like, there's just no shade here. All the trees are gone. And it was just so weird because you don't think about it like that. But I mean, shade's kind of important to people in the South, really.
Yeah. Well, think about, with all these trees gone, trees do and shrubbery holds up the ground from erosion. So now with all these massive trees gone, the ground disrupted, we're in wintertime, so there's going to be snow in the mountains. So when the snow melts, it's going to run down these, streams and river, and these rivers have changed, right? They've changed directions. Mother Nature the water went where she wanted to go. So what's going to happen then? What's going to happen to the land, the people that are rebuilding? It's going to be interesting to see over the next couple of months. And this could be one of the reasons that FEMA, and I'm not justifying anything they're doing, or is kind of going a little slower right now because they're trying to think of what's going to happen in 4 or 5 months when the snow melts and this happens and springtime comes and all that stuff, because that's right around the corner. So maybe they're in a planning stage of something to figure out. All the scientists and environmental guys are in there trying to figure out how do we prevent this, with all these different variables happening now. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm not justifying anything they're doing, or it's just interesting that we don't think about that.
Yeah. One thing that I think one thing I think we ought to do as communities, okay, when we have like these events, I think what a great thing for the community to do is to literally just go start replacing trees.
It's interesting that you say that, because I agree with you 100%.
Because I mean, it's iconic. It protects you from the average storm. It does all kind of good things for you. It manages your water. It does all kinds of things.
And I think we'll get there, David. I just think we're not, we're only 60 some days into the storm. So I think that will be some of the large corporations, could be the lumber companies, whatever, but they're going to come in here and start these programs with reseeding trees and all that stuff. We're not there yet in the process, I believe.
Yeah. So I just worry that, like we were saying about the tariffs and just changes in general, I think that it could seriously discombobble. I mean, if we did something as simple as increase the cost of fuel by 40%, that would be hard on that community. It would be hard on everybody, but it would be hard on a rebuilding community.
Yeah.
And I just think that we always have like 100 days. I always say it's 100 days of the fog of the cat, and you can see the end of it, but you're not there yet. Not by a long shot.
We're nowhere near it there in Western North Carolina. The interesting thing is we have a lot of folks coming in, Amish folks from Pennsylvania, coming in and building temporary shelters for folks, nice. Tiny houses. Beautiful, right? It's awesome that people are doing this, trying to get them out of tents. But now the Department of Insurance is saying these buildings aren't up to code, so let's stop the production of this. And this is at the ground level, right? And I've posted out there on TikTok a little bit about Mitchell County talking about this, saying, guys, we can't approve this because we fall under the management of Department of Insurance here in North Carolina. and they're giving us directives not to allow these temporary housing.
The temporary structures.
I guess the way the code is written now, there's been a few folks that said, listen, you have to put some straps here, hurricane straps, whatever, get that done. And then they can't deny it at that point. If they deny it at that point, then you immediately go to court. These are just people coming down to help people get out of the weather.
I have a question for you. This may be stupid, but how did the Amish get there?
I've seen them in Chevy Tahoes.
Okay. They
I saw them coming out of McDonald's, which was kind of strange. I guess this is the new age Amish folks.
Are they Amish or are they Mennonites?
I'm going with Amish, but valid point. I didn't ask them, I didn't talk to them, but
I think they might be Mennonites because those people do drive.
Yes.
They don't do the technology.
No, they don't think that. But, it's beautiful. They're just coming down to help.
Hey, you want me to tell you me to tell you about my favorite Mennonite client ever?
In Pennsylvania?
No. This was somebody who
Oh, wow.
And I got tapped on this appraisal, and my opposing just sends me. Okay, now the first thing that happened on this, the first thing is as soon as I got the appraisal, I got calls from 3 different people in the industry that told me these are really nice people and you should do a really good job for them. Now, nobody knows you have an appraisal when you have it, right? I mean, like it's a pretty narrow. It's a pretty private thing. I mean, like it's not like it's published on some board somewhere. So I mean, like that was weird. And I just remember thinking that's weird, but okay. Anyway, so my opposing sends me this note that says, look, the insureds were overpaid on 2 of their coverages. And there's just not a lot to do here. So I'm not writing an estimate. So I contact counsel for the insured, and I said, look, I said, my opposing is not going to create an estimate, and they're telling that there was overpaying on all these policies, and it looks like it's just going to be a mess. I think you should pull this out of appraisal, and I think you should take it to court. And the attorney says, look, she says, look, give me a few minutes. I'll call you back. I'm going to talk to the insured. She calls me back a few minutes later, and she says, I'm going to need you to go ahead and invoke the umpire and get this done. I said, why? And she said, well, the insured doesn't want to go to court because of the images and the text messages that she shared with her adjuster might affect her marriage negatively if it was brought out in court.
Boy.
And I said, she was making whoopee with the adjuster? She goes, yeah, that's how he got fired because she got him. He juiced all these policies for her. We don't even know how he did it. And I said, and she said, I asked her, I said, do you still talk to him? He says, sometimes, not real often. So I have this rule in appraisal that we don't hide anything. Okay. So I called up the panel and I said, look, this is the situation, guys. This is what's causing this to be like kind of crazy. I said, so I said, I just need us to put this baby to bed. Okay. And the umpire says, just ask the insured's counsel to make sure that woman isn't there, because I'm not going to know this about this woman and see her husband. And so she wasn't there. And we went there and we went and sat down outside on a bench. And the umpire looks at me, goes, what's going to do it? I said, $60,000. He goes, okay, let's go. He goes, I feel dirty. But that was my funniest night ever. Cause she was really good looking, but I mean,
she was doing what she had to do, I guess, to get her claim paid.
I don't know. That's some strange advocating there for your claim.
Yeah. No, advocating. She was advocating for herself. There was not a PA involved in that one.
No, there was not a PA involved in that. Thank goodness.
Yes.
I did have an adjuster call me during this last set of storms, and he calls me and he's all flustered. And I'm like, what's wrong, man? What's wrong? And he goes, I was in this lady's house and I'm looking at her house and I look up and she's completely naked. And she says, I want to talk about getting a real good claim, some real good money on my claim. What could I do for you? And I go, what'd you do? He says, I ran out the front door. And he said, what do I do? I said, you call your boss and you say, hey, I need you to send a female adjuster to this location.
That's right.
He goes, I don't have to tell him, just tell him a female would be better suited for this particular insured. He calls me back later. He goes, it worked. I didn't have to explain it. And then he called me 3 days later. He goes, they sent somebody else. And the lady called him and said, the insured's very embarrassed that she acted so poorly with you. She says, can you tell me what poorly was?
Yeah.
He said no and hung up.
Yeah. I'm out. I'm done. Jeez, oh man.
No.
Are you seeing the same stuff in Florida with the FEMA and the flood?
Part of the thing about Florida is Florida is just an obscenely expensive place to begin with. Okay. So it makes this flood coverage really painful. Because like if I go to Louisiana and I have the same kind of scenario, very often the insured's looking at $10,000 or $20,000 worth of additional cost. But in Florida, you're looking at people on the regular, they're going to have to spend $100,000, $125,000, $150,000 above and beyond what FEMA's paying, even if they hit policy limits, because it's just so substandard for the cost at which the property is. And so it's, what I don't understand is why these brokers, okay? I would think a broker could make a fortune in Florida just saying, I'm going to sell you private flood, or I'm going to sell you a umbrella to go on top of your flood policy. Like I have a policy at my house. I don't even live in a flood covered. I don't even live in a place that's got it's in zone X, but I'm still 1,300 feet from a decent body of water. I mean, granted, a lot of people are going to be dead if I get flooded. I mean, if I get 6 inches, a whole bunch of people died.
Yeah.
Down the way.
I'm not laughing, but I am.
But the thing is, like my policy says that flood pays what flood pays, and then the umbrella pays what my regular homeowners pays under those same policy provisions. It's not that policy, but it's the same policy provisions. So above that. So if I had a $400,000 loss because of a flood, they would pay that additional. The only problem with it is I have to get past the 250. So what if I got in a situation where they wouldn't give me over the 250? Then I wouldn't be able to get there. That's the rub. But you know what I used to have too. I don't do it anymore because I have one. I don't have a hurricane deductible. I have a deductible, period. And I actually think I should pay whatever's necessary to have a one deductible, because I think on your worst day, having to pay out 18 grand before they pay you a dime is
ridiculous.
Not a good thing for your relationship with your wife. Because you do know this. You do know this. The day you have an insured loss, it's all on you, buddy. Whatever you did before that, it's all on you. You want to have a bad relationship, don't have good insurance.
Yeah.
It's the one thing that would really destroy it.
Exactly.
But no, I think that these brokers could get a lot more inventive. When I used to have a hurricane deductible, I paid like $100 a year to have a policy on my deductible. So if I had to engage my deductible, I had to pay a $150 deductible, and then it would pay my $19,500 deductible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the problem with that is most of us, and I've been guilty of this, and we've talked about this a while back, they don't really spend the time to dig into their policy, right, to understand it. One, it's overwhelming for the average person, right? All these legal words and convoluted statements and things like that. And, if it's out of sight, out of mind, if we don't need it or haven't had it, we don't know to go in there and check it.
I just think that there are places in the world where you cannot buy an insurance policy except through a broker. Like they can't sell it to you. You have to go to a broker, because the idea is the broker has better knowledge about they're a policy professional. And the problem with just an insured buying a policy is they're going to invariably, I mean, look what I did. I didn't notice that my policy changed and I had a year worth of ALE instead of the 2 why would I have twice the budget for ALE for this 1 year? It wouldn't make any sense, but I didn't notice it because the policy coverage didn't change. Their risk did change though. And they did do that.
Yeah.
I'll charge you more.
And how many people are buying their policies online?
Well,
they just go in there, or their financial institutions have, Wells Fargo or another large financial institution has a division that sells insurance. Don't worry about it. We'll just get them to write you the policy, add it in there, and you're done. And, times aren't changing. It's always been this way, but we really need to spend just a little bit more time
You got to have at least enough knowledge of your policy, at least as much knowledge of your policy as you have about the labels on the things that you eat. I mean, you've got to understand it on some level. If you're connected to a public utility, don't know when it'll be, but at some point, that public utility is going to come for you and it's going to blow raw sewage into your house somewhere. Okay. It happens. Something like 82% of all people don't have that cheap ass $25,000 you get to clean that up. And they're always writing that check to somebody to come clean it up, because thou shalt not have to clean up fecal matter from the sewage system from your own house. You have to hire somebody to do that.
That's right.
Because once again, it really messes up your relationship. But no, I don't know. I just, what kind of kills me is, like, you would think in these situations, the insurance company would go, hey, why don't we build another product? Because, like, if you had a loss, okay, like, so all these people that have had losses in North Carolina, to me, if I was an insurance broker or an insurance company, I would think, what could I provide these people that would make them buy my product? Understanding the fears and the things that have touched them right now, they would pay good money for my product if it could avoid some of the pain they're experiencing right now. I mean,
well, it's interesting. I know there's a big carrier that's providing an app that will detect surges in the electrical system, and they're giving it to their customers for free. It's not an app to help the customer. It's an app to gather information for the carrier. Because if that app goes off that says you had a surge and you don't get it checked out, you're in default of your policy, so now we don't have to pay anything. Right. It looks good on paper, and the intentions, I truly do think there's some good intentions there of, preventing some of these house fires from, electrical system issue. But at the end of the day, they're just trying to gather information to deny the claim.
Well, I tell you what, I've in my new house or my rebuilt house, depending on what we decide, we still are going round and round and round. You can't build enough. You've already discombobulated your life, and you can't figure out if you should just try to go back to your life or build a new one somewhere else. But if you build one new one somewhere else, you're giving away the things that you had here. And I mean, it's really screwy. But my next structure that I have, I will spend a few $1,000s and I will put cameras in the attic, in the hall. I mean, I'm going to put cameras everywhere, outside and inside. And I'm going to run them on independent power if they, so that it can run for an hour or two if there's no power or whatever. And I'm going to connect to that system. I'm going to connect water sensors at where all the water comes in. I'm going to connect the smoke sensors, the CO2, all of it, so that when the day comes that we have a problem, we can see what happened, when it happened, what alerts were given, what we did, the whole 9 yards. So it tells that story, because I don't want to have any misunderstandings in the future. Like, if I have a claim ever again, it's going to be documented like you were there. It's going to be like a reality show. But
that's the benefit.
They did ask me, I had my cameras that did pick up part of my loss in my house. And I had it set to where it just grabbed movement and it deleted after 3 days or something. And they said, my EO, they said, why did you have your system set up to delete? And I said, I have cameras all over my house. There is video somewhere of me naked often. And I said, I want it to naturally delete because I don't want that just out there somewhere. and the attorney goes, makes sense.
Yeah.
Just like that. Like, well, it makes sense.
Just full transparency, right?
Yeah, it's like, I don't want that. The goal of being a boy is to look good naked, but not just every day. But anyway, so you had a good Thanksgiving?
Yeah, everything was good.
Yeah.
Normal stuff when the families get together.
All the kids come home?
All the kids are home. One of them didn't make it over, which kind of upset me a little bit. But, we're at the age now where there's boyfriends and girlfriends involved and, visiting different families in the bio family. So I was able to just pull it together and I sent a text late last night saying, hey, great seeing you today. Love you. Enjoyed the day with you. Have a good night. I got a response early this morning on that one.
But you did.
Yeah. So
Now, I have an old man told me once that he said the definition of success is having your kids want to come see you.
yeah.
He says that's the whole thing. He says nothing else really. He said you could be a pauper and still have your kids want to come see you, and you would have had the richest of lives.
Yeah. How true is
Of course,
that?
that also is the same man who told me that the things they tell you you'll regret are untrue. I said, what do you mean? He says, they're going to tell you if you miss this or you miss that, it's going to be you're going to regret it your whole life. He says, it's not true. He says, he says, you're going to have 3 or 4 or 5 chances to drink from a waterfall. And that's God giving you a chance to find out who you are. And if you don't drink, if you just let it go, he says, when you're sitting around at 80 years old, you'll think, damn, I wonder what I could have done with that. I said, but you have lots of money. He says, it's not the money, it's the life. And I've always thought about that every time I think, God, I don't know if I want to do this.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hey, how was your Thanksgiving?
It was good. It was good. I had, the kids and mother-in-law who lives with me, and my brother-in-law who has a truly wonderful girlfriend. She's a joy to be around. And my other brother-in-law who changes cars at a rate that no human has ever seen before. Like if he's driving a truck today, he'll be driving another thing 3 months from now. And, it's different. We always get to discuss what car he has now.
Nice.
He got that, by the way, he bought a used GMC diesel truck, and he bought it because because the oil prices the diesel prices are going to fall.
Nice.
Yeah. I don't think that's quite going to work like he thinks it's going to work.
No, but that's okay. He can think that way. That's how he wants to think, right?
Yeah. You have a background in banking, don't you?
I do. Oh, you have an amazing memory.
So some some macroeconomic theories or ways things work, right?
Sure. I think I do.
It would be better in this life that you didn't know that, because most people don't understand anything about macroeconomics these days. None. Not at all. But well, I sure will see you later on Mr. Sweet's call.
Yep.
And I hope that this coming week is going to be awesome. I have what they call they on Sunday I have my birthday.
Well, happy early birthday.
I have to always remember that my birthday is far more important to other people than it is to me.
Yes.
I mean, I kind of like my life, so I don't really need anything. But I.
Yeah. So the whole family's coming back in?
I doubt that. I mean, my daughter will be here. My mother-in-law will be here. I mean, that'll be it. My son, he's always busy. He's busy. But he's here now. But no, it's and then next week we do Tennessee, and that should be fun. I get to go do this one in Tennessee, and I'm so excited about it, because this building is about 140 years old, and it's been in this guy's family. It's a commercial building, but it's been in this guy's family his entire life. And this man is 92 years old, and he runs up and down the stairs with me when I'm there better than I do. And if you looked at him, you would think maybe he might be 50. You'd have no idea what he actually is. And I said to him, I said, so you've been in this building one way or the other your entire life? He says, yes, it's about 30 years older than me, 30, 40 years older than me. And I said, so do you have other family? He goes, no. I outlived everybody. I said, like your kids, everything? He goes, yes, everybody. He says, there's one benefit of this. He says, what's that? He says, I have all of their money.
Nice.
He says, I'm the last man standing. I have everything. He says, so my whole family died and I became independently rich. But anyway, on this particular loss, the carriers paid $76.11 to repair the roof. $76.11 to repair the roof.
Okay. This is a law and ordinance issue?
No. The roof is leaking still. It
Nice.
was after the peril, but they paid $76.11. And so they wouldn't pay any more than $76.11. And their public adjuster said, well, that's fine. I appreciate you agreeing to the $76.11. So, yeah. So the roof needs to be replaced, and the roof's about $500,000. So it should be interesting. But I have a decent opposing, and I have a decent umpire, and I think it'll work out just fine. Now, of course, if we can get the carrier to pay for it once we have the award, that'll be exciting too.
I always tell folks I can bring them to the trough. I can't make them write the check or drink the water.
Yeah.
But you're traveling there, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
With the wife?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And it'll be cool because it's going to be nice and cold. And cold's good. I like cold.
I'm with you.
Cold limits sweat.
Cold limits me from having the mobility that I once had.
Really? They make like something called glucosamine, right?
Yeah, I know, but whatever. It just gives me something to complain about.
Hey, I'll tell you what. Just sometime call me and I'll tell you how to work that out. I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding you at all. They have this thing called Horvath's clock, and it says that I'm 37.
Wow.
And I'm not 37.
No.
I hadn't been 37 in some time now.
That's right.
But physiologically, I'm 37.
Yeah.
So I don't have a lot of the creaks that I would have otherwise. And I'll tell you how to do that. It's not that hard. It's a stupid joke is what it is. It's the whole world lied to you for all this time.
Yeah.
But
all right,
man. You take care of yourself.
You too, buddy. I'll talk to you later, man. Thank you, Dan.
Okay, man. Thanks.